Hello, welcome to today's lesson 3D drawing for your model railway. In today's lesson I'm going to create all the print files for the complete wagon, the complete train that we've drawn. So if I'm going to start with up in the crane body, so we've got two bodies up here, and what we've got is this inner part and the body itself. Now ultimately I'd like to print them all as one, but I'm not entirely sure how this is going to print. So what I'm going to do is combine them initially, load them into Chitubox, see how they look, and if they work okay and they'll print okay, then great. If they don't, then I may have to look at splitting them up into two parts. So combine body 1 with body 5, click on OK. We've got one body there, so we can now 3D print that body. I'm not going to go straight into the 3D printing utility and straight into Chitubox. I'm going to export them all first. So that's the crane body. If I put them all in this folder, so this is going to be crane body. Now we know that body is now complete. We can close that and move on to the next one. So we've got the chassis here. So we've got 5 parts in here. We've got the bogie, the pivot pin for the bogie, the pivot gear on the top, the coupling arm, and the main body itself. So if we export the main body itself, because we don't have to attach anything to that, so 3D print body 1, click on OK, and that's going to be chassis. We can do coupling arm. So that's already come up with reasonable names. Save that. Pivot gear. Pin. And last on the list with bogie. Okay, so that's the 5 things within the chassis done. Next is the pivot. It's just a small part in there, so we can just 3D print that. There's no issue there. So and name that pivot body. Save. Okay, then within the jib, we've got 2 bodies. What have we got here? Okay, that's added that onto there for some reason. I just have a look in the jib here, find this small little circle that we could put that one there, edit that, that's it, joined. Okay, and we're going to 3D print the jib. Okay, so within the runner, we've got quite a lot going on here. So these numbered parts are the W irons, so I'm going to combine those to the main chassis. I've got the cradle, the lift arm, coupling arm, and the coupling pin. Okay, so 3D print main chassis. I'm just going to rename that to runner chassis for there. cradle. Lifting arm. End on the end here. Arm. So that it's different from the coupling arm that goes between the two. And coupling pin. Well, when we print this, we need to make sure we do 3 of them because there's one there, and one on the other end of the coupling arm here. Okay, so that's everything exported now. It's all of the files. So now it's just a case of jumping into Chitubox and then setting these up ready for the printer. Okay, so now we're in Chitubox. What we need to think about doing is what parts we can get on the build plate to get the maximum amount on here that will use the whole of the build plate, but also the height of the build plate. So there's no point printing one massive long item on here and then everything else being really short, and they take maybe 2 hours to print and the long item takes 8 hours, and then on the next print having the same issue of one item that's going to be 8 hours and the other items that are going to be 3 or 4 hours. You might as well try and combine things that are all similar sizes to get the best throughput from the printer. So if we start looking at the files, so realistically the longest thing we've got here is the runner chassis. So if we start with that, we can see that it's not going to fit in across the build plate, so we're going to have to initially rotate that. I'm going to spin that through 90 degrees. Okay. The next thing I need is you want to try and have this orientated so that it's not completely flat, so it's going to print better at an angle. So I'm going to rotate that again. This time I'm going to rotate it that direction, just to lift it up slightly. Now, let me just check what the best angle is going to be for this one. I think it's about 20 something degrees. Okay, so I have 0.3mm layer height, so it's actually 33 degrees is the best angle. Okay. We'll then need to support, obviously, everything around on here. So if we jump into the supports, let's initially look at the mediums. Okay, I'm going to want to have one right on the bottom of the buffer there, on each side. And then there's going to be a light support that I'm going to put on the inside, just on the inside lip there of both of these two parts, because you need to support everything that's at its lowest point. So those two should hold the buffers all the way up. Next thing I'm going to be looking for is I'm going to come across the bottom and here. When I do this, I need to be wary of these two pins that we put in here to make sure that the supports don't actually clash and touch onto those. I'm also going to put a support at the bottom of both of those. And we need to put some supports at the bottom of this. So I'm going to put one at the bottom there. And oh, I don't want that one there. Delete that. I'm going to put one on that inside edge there. Okay, I'm going to put a little support in there. Let's just make sure that's not clashing with the side of the wagon. That's very close there, so I'm just going to edit this support. I'm going to grab it there and just drag that out slightly. Okay, so now I'm just going to run some supports up the side of the wagon here. Okay, so this is now a low spot there, so I'm going to put a support on the end of that. I'm also going to bring some supports along the WI like that. So this is going to produce an island on here. I'm going to put that support in there, and I'm going to drag it out of the way of the WI. Oh, it's going behind, it needs to come towards me. Okay, so like that. Okay, so I'm catching all the low spots that are sitting as islands. These ones will be fine because they'll be connected onto the side of the WIs. The same with everything else around there, that's all connected onto the WI in there. Okay, so then continuing back, I'm going to start coming down. Take that back to add. Start coming down the truss here. Make sure I get the low spots. You can already see how this is going to need supporting in here. I'm just going to continue up on the truss to start with. I'm going to come all the way down the side and then I'll go back to doing those bits. On the end up there. So I'm getting a bit of a tree forming here, which isn't an issue at all. You know, it's, if all supports go up as one like that, you save a little bit of resin on them. Okay, so I'm going to have one on the end there, and I'm going to drag this support away slightly. Probably doesn't need to be so far out. Okay, so I've gone all the way up that side. Unfortunately, unlike CAD, you can't just mirror objects on here. So you've got to actually go around and do the other side as well independently. Did we catch that on this side? Let me just check that. No, we didn't. So we've got one to go in here. What I'm going to do is edit that support to come in and catch that. So it's catching on the end here rather than on the truss, which is fine. Then we get a support on the end of, make sure it's on plus, that'll help. And then a couple going up the W irons. Catch one on the end there. Again, it's a little bit close here, so I'm just going to drag this out and away slightly. So we've got this gap here that it's not going to start clashing and sticking to the side of the W iron there. Okay, again, going to continue to add. got that little bit that sticks out there. Come down the WI again, making sure again you get the low point so it's all supported. So I'm just going to put one on the bottom of there. So that's all the right place. Yep, that's fine. And then we'll do one on the end of the coupling retainers there. Okay, and then we also need to do end of the buffers because there's a low spot that form an island there. Okay, let's have a look now for any detail on the side that's going to be floating. So what I'm looking for here is that handbrake island going to be an island here? Yes, it is. So I'm going to put a light support in on there. That's not what I wanted to do. Let's remove that. Let's try coming in from the side. Okay, so I'm going to drag it away from the wagon itself. And then I'm going to edit it to come directly onto the end of that face there. Okay, so this should be okay. Okay, you can already see there's going to be one on the end there that's going to be an island. So again, we'll come in on the side. Again, you can see how it's jumped down that side. So let's delete that. Let's try again, put it somewhere else. So if we try coming on the side like that, good, and drag it away. Edit the face. So I think that's going in where I need to be. Maybe not quite. There we go. That's right on the bottom there. Okay, so the next one's going to be in here. Now that's going to be a little bit of a pain to get into. Coming onto the side here. Dragging that higher and out slightly. And then we can edit to come in. So there you go. You can see how we're catching in on the end there. Maybe just need to come in slightly more. Like that. Just going to edit that in slightly and check that it's not catching on the truss there now. Okay, that looks okay. There's definitely daylight between them. Okay, that's good. Coming up the rest of the side of the wagon here. All the rest of it should be okay. This might need to be smartened out a little bit, but we can check that in the validator. And I will run this through the validator for each one just to make sure there's nothing missing before I start adding the rest of them. So what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to sit here and show you every single one because we'll be here for hours and hours and hours doing this. if I just show you what I'll do with this wagon, and then you can work your own way out through Chitubox to fix your own. That's it's on, but it's going to potentially need to be really, really careful when I get to take that out. That's not going to work there. Let's add it onto the side like that. That should be okay, because that should pick up at this point and then come across and join all the rest of it. These are all okay internally, so it's just now a case of let's check underneath. Going back to medium supports. And start adding some supports in around this sort of area. Okay, so in here we're going to have to put some supports on the back edge of the bucket there for the hook. Just working our way back down that truss. I'm going to put a couple up the inside. These will be difficult to get out, but they're needed, unfortunately. I think that's everything. One might. I'm debating whether to put an extra one on the buffer just to give it a little bit more support, because that's going to be obviously the leading edge. Just going to put a couple extra on there. Okay, so that's the runner wagon. Now, as I say, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to test this just to make sure there's nothing missing in the validator file. Okay, so now I've sliced the runner wagon. I'm just going to save that. You can see it's going to take 8.5 hours. So I'm just going to name that 1 to start with. It's going to take 8.5 hours to print this, which I'm sort of expecting. You know, it's reasonably long. The longest bit's going to be the jib, really, and that's probably going to push this print close to 10 hours. But I'm going to start it off early in the morning, and we'll see what it's like when it comes off in the evening. So once it's finished writing this file, I'm just going to, as I say, check it in the validator. I'll keep jumping between the validator and this just to make sure that if it does throw up any islands, that whether I need to support them within Chitubox or whether I can just support them within the validator file. It's got to run through all these. I'm going to pause the recording while it does this. Okay, so there you go, it's finished. It's got all these islands. Tell it to fix them. Some of them maybe will just move some pixels around. What we're looking for is any that it says that it can't fix. So there's one there that we need to look at. Okay, so it's come up with 3. So we have a look and see what they are. Let's go with this one. So that's 590. Looks like it's the bottom of the truss for some reason. Let's jump into Chitubox, have a look. Right at the bottom, there's a couple of supports on either side. Odd because I haven't got support either side of that truss. So what is it? Ah, I see what it is, it's these. Okay, so come back in here, put one quite on the end, there and there. I think that will do those. Yeah, of course it is. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, they're lower than this point here. So that's those fixed. Okay, so what's this one? That I can fix within here, that's not an issue. Okay, and that is on the cradle. What I will do within here when I come to do this is I'll just go in here and I'll join this along here, and I'll do that on a couple of layers. I'll show you which part that is, and it'll be an absolute nightmare to get a support in here. It'll be these bits here. So if I show you where I try, if it tries to put support in, right on that bottom edge, you end up with that, and it'll, you know, you're going to end up with this all the way through here. It'll be a nightmare to clean up. So that file validator will just allow me, it will allow me just to fill in this gap here. It's only going to be on a couple of layers, you won't notice it. Delete that. So, you know, that's how I'm going to go and fix these. Okay. So leave the video at this point here, and I'm going to jump through doing the rest of these. If I come across any that I find quite interesting, I might add those into the video, but I don't want to bore you by adding in every single thing. What I'll show you next is the point of where I've completed this build plate with as much items as I can fit on there. Because I'm just going to add a quick little video in here, just showing you what I've had to do within the jib. Within this derrick here, where the pulleys are, I've had to put quite a few supports up through the middle and then branch them all out to catch each of the rims on here. Which, yeah, this is one of those things I thought would have been a problem, and hence why you can see that it's formed quite a little tree inside there to try and catch all of those supports onto those. And hopefully that will be strong enough with the support coming up through here to hold this all in place. Okay, and I've changed the angle lower on this rather than doing 33 degrees, the same as this one, because when I matched that jib to this would have then been completely horizontal. So I've done it at a slightly lower angle so that this is all at an angle as well, coming up rather than being horizontal to the build plate, to give it that bit of better print quality. Hi everyone, here's an update on the second of the files, which is containing all the smaller bits and pieces. So I've put on here the coupling arm to go between the two units, the gear, the three coupling pins, the pivot, the bogey pin, the lifting frame, rapido coupling, and the top half of the cradle. So that's the second half of the print that's needed to do all the crane. Unfortunately, as you can see, there isn't anywhere near enough room to have done the first two prints as one lot. So there's going to be two prints. This one's going to be quite a small one, probably only 2 or 3 hours. But slice this up for you so you can see. So the first one's running at the moment. That's about an 8.5 hour print. So I'm going to know the outcome of that some point today. You're going to probably find out about it in the next couple of days after you've seen this video. The resin that it's using for the other one is about £1 worth of resin. Obviously there's going to be some wasted, so if you say maybe £1.50 if it prints okay. This one is 3 hours, just over 3 hours, so it's using, I'm saying 16 pence, so if you say 30p. So in total, potential cost of producing this crane, if it all goes to plan, I can produce this for a couple of £1 a shot. Obviously you can see the majority of the work has been in producing the videos and doing the CAD work, which is, if you look through the videos, it's about 30+ hours worth of video there. Plus you've then got the setting up of the print files. This has taken probably about 3 or 4 hours. And then you've got the printer time, and then the time for cleaning it afterwards, and then you've got to take into consideration any failures. So you can see why the costs soon spiral up when people start to charge for 3D printing work. Even though it's only going to cost a couple of quid to produce the item in resin, the costs will soon add up. But if you do this yourself, I'm producing this crane. I've done the CAD work as a part of my hobby, the videos as part of a hobby, and then I'm then getting the output here for a couple of pounds towards my hobby. It's an item that I would never normally been able to have achieved. So these are the print files set up. As I say, the first file's running on the print at the moment, and you'll find out how the outcome comes on that in the next couple of days.